Welcome back to the channel. Today we're back with some more Final Fantasy Commander content with Jill. Shiva's dominant as commander for this deck. For Dream Mana, you get a 2/2, where when Jill enters, return up to one other target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, whether it be your own or your opponent's. And for some additional mana, you could transform her into Shiva, Warden of Ice. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Since she does exile herself and then return herself to the battlefield, she does have that summoning sickness again, so it might not be herself, might be one of your other creatures. And then the secondary ability, once you get to turn 3 with it, tap all lands your opponent's control, exile Shiva, and return her to the battlefield, where she does get that first ability again since she is exiled and returned to the battlefield. So we do have plenty of ways to bounce Jill in order to get that bounce ability off again. Some ways to proliferate those counters on the Saga side in order to make sure we get back to the front side again. Some ways to give her haste so she can still attack, and she can be that unblockable creature. And then, since we're going to be tapping a whole bunch of things, we have a few ways to play some stacks in this deck. But that's the general overview of the deck. As always, if you guys like the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, so you can stay tuned for future videos. But we're going to get into it card by card. And, sorry, it's one other thing. If you guys do have a commander that you'd like to see featured in the video, just leave it down there in the comment section, and we'll do our best to get to it. Whether it's one we've covered or not, you can always try something new with it. But starting us off, we have Arcane Signet for some mana. Conjurer's Closet, which will help us blink Jill, whether she's on her front side or back side, in order to get that first ability again, in order to bounce another creature. Hilda's Crown of Winter, tap target creature. This ability costs one less to cast during your turn, so you just tap it to tap a creature your opponent controls, so you can swing in a little bit easier. Or if you just want to make it so you're playing a little bit of politics there with your opponent's stuff. Or you pay 3 to sacrifice it, draw a card for each tapped creature your opponents control. You activate both abilities during the same turn, so you tap those creatures and then pay the 3 mana to sacrifice it, since it doesn't require tap for the secondary one. Lava Spur Boots, as I said, we want to give Shiva some haste in order to make sure she can attack the turn she comes in. So let's run some Lava Spur Boots, some Lightning Greaves, Mjolnir as another way to tap our opponent's stuff. When it enters, attach a legendary creature control. So Jill, unfortunately, when she does transform, it will get removed, or when she gets blinked, it gets removed. And whenever a equipped creature attacks, tap it, target creature defending player controls. Put a stun counter on it, making sure it stays tapped so you keep on swinging. And then deal damage equal to the number of tapped creatures that opponent controls. So, like I said, we want to make sure that we're getting in our opponent's way quite a bit. Panharmonica, this way rather than bouncing one thing or one target creature not being blocked, we can make so 2 target creatures can be blocked and we're bouncing 2 things. Sapphire Medallion for some cost reduction, Soul Ring for some mana, Swiftfoot Boots, same as Lava Spur Boots and Lightning Greaves, we just want to make sure we give it haste. Sword of the Animus, we are in blue, so we want to take as many ways as possible to get land out of our deck. So you got Sword of the Animus in here for that. Dot Vessel for some additional mana, Wayfarer's Bauble for initial land, Winter Moon for some stacks. Players can tap more than one non-basic land during their untap step, so since we're going to be tapping all their lands, let's make it even more of a headache than just having them be tapped for one turn. And then Winter Orb. As long as Winter Orb is untapped, players can't untap more than one land during their untap steps. So same thing as Winter Moon there for you. For our creatures, we have Aether Chandler. We have quite a few creatures that just like to be blinked or due to blinking. He gets you a 1/1 bird when he enters. Return another target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, whether it be your own or your opponent's, same as Jill, and draw a card. Baron Tolarian Archmage. When he enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target creature or planeswalker to its owner's hand. Once again, we're going to be bouncing either our stuff or our opponents. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent is put into your hand from the battlefield this turn, draw a card. I mean, if we bounce our own thing, we get that draw power off it as well. Cloud of Fairies enters battlefield, untap up to 2 lands. We don't really have any ways to have multiple mana off 1 land, but it's still pretty helpful just having a creature you could cast again and again. Displace Kitten in order to make sure that we could blink Jill in order to transform her back from Shiva to Jill, I mean. so that you can get that bounce ability again. The Port Mage, since we're going to be blinking Jill so much, it will be considered to be leaving the battlefield, allowing us to draw a card. And you can also return another target creature you control to its owner's hand, so you can get those enter the battlefield abilities again. Dreamtide Whale, whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, proliferate. I was thinking about putting some poison counter things in here, just since we do have so many ways to proliferate, but we could proliferate some stun counters, we could proliferate the Saga lore counters on Jill. Do a whole bunch of fun stuff with this in order to get Jill to transform a little bit faster. Fear sleep paralysis. Whenever this or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, tap up to one target creature and put a stun counter on it. And stun counters don't get removed from permanents. So, yeah, getting your opponent's way quite a bit there. Flood Pit's Drowner. Enters tap target creature and opponent controls and put a stun counter on it, which won't get removed because of Fear sleep paralysis. You can pay 2 mana, shuffle it, and target creature with stun counter on it into their owner's libraries, which is kind of one of the best forms of removal because it's not in the graveyard so they can't revive it, and it's not in their hand so they can't recast it. Flux Channeler, another way to proliferate whenever we cast a non-creature spell. Gadwick the Wizened, whenever he enters the battlefield, draw X cards. Unfortunately, when you do blink him, that is considered to be 0. But whenever he has a blue spell, tap target non-land permanent opponent controls. All our spells are blue, well, except for these, allowing us to tap quite a bit of our opponent's creatures. Ice Flan, when his creature enters, tap target artifact or creature an opponent controls, put a stun counter on it. Like I said, a whole bunch of ways to tap our opponent's stuff, just, being a bit of a nuisance here. Lulu, Stern Guardian, whenever an opponent attacks, choose one target creature attacking you, put a stun counter on that creature, making so that it doesn't untap during this turn, and possibly never again with the Fear sleep paralysis, if that's around. Malcolm, a luring scoundrel. Flash, flying. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, put a chorus counter on it, draw a card, then discard a card. If there are 4 or more chorus counters on Malcolm, you may cast the discarded card without paying its mana cost. What wouldn't you like more than free Ice Flan if you proliferate those counters onto Malcolm already? Mole Drifter, a good creature that can bounce there in order to keep drawing those 2 cards every time it's bounced. Owaka, Traveling Merchant, remove a counter from a non-land permanent you control, draw a card. If we put stun counter on ourselves, we could remove those. If we want to keep Jill as Shiva for a little bit longer, we could do that as well. Peregrine Drake, another spell that we keep casting again and again. Pretty good ones blinked in order to keep on tapping those lands. Solemn Simulacrum, a creature with good enter the battlefield ability in order to keep getting more lands because we need them here in blue. Summon Shiva, different Shiva from the Shiva that Jill is the dominant of. Tap target creature and opponent controls, put a stun counter on it. Pretty good ability there, which we could keep proliferating, keep on making sure those can't be removed, and then draw a card for each tapped creature opponent controls. Since we've been tapping so many creatures, it's probably one of the best cards here in the deck. Summon Valfar. Each opponent chooses a creature with the greatest mana value among creatures they control. Return those creatures to their owner's hand, allowing us to remove our opponent's stuff, even if it's just temporarily. And then tap up to one target creature and put a stun counter on it, allowing us, kind of also temporary removal there. Tukuthal, Inquiry Dominus, if you would proliferate twice instead. We have a lot of ways to proliferate here in this deck, so may as well take advantage of that. Dasa, Deep Dwelling. It allows us to blink a creature, allowing us to transform Jill back and forth. Drumming Bird, another way to proliferate whenever this creature deals combat damage. We also don't have that many creatures with flying in this deck, so that could come in handy there as well. And then Venser, Shaper Servant, Flash, whenever he enters, return target spell or permanent to its owner's hand. He does also Flash, allowing us to do it while a spell's on the stack, allowing us to return to the hand. For our enchantments, we have Candlekeep Sage. Commander creatures you own have, when this creature enters or leaves the battlefield, draw a card. We have a whole bunch of ways to make it so that Jill enters, leaves. So let's keep on drawing cards since we're going to be doing that. Inexorable Tide. Whenever we cast a spell, proliferate. Once again, we've been liking the proliferation here in this deck, so let's use as many ways as we can for it. Propaganda. Our opponents are probably be mad that we're tapping all their stuff and leaving them open, so let's make it so they can't attack us. Training, well, not that they can't attack us, they could still attack us, they could pay it to. No one really ever pays it to, everyone just waits till someone removes it. Training Grounds, activated abilities of creatures you control cost 2 less to activate. allowing us to make it so that we could transform Jill into Shiva a little bit easier. Let's scroll on over to the second half of the deck here. Scrolling. There we go. For our instance, we have 17 total. We have quite a few counter spells. An offer you can't refuse, Arcane Denial, Blur for one of our blink spells, which we also have a lot of. Counter spell for a counter spell, Displays for a blink spell, Essence Flux for the blink, Experimental Augury for another way to proliferate, Frantic Search for a little bit of draw power. You do have to discard some stuff. Allows you to reuse your lands. Ghostly Flicker for some blink. High Tide for, since we're going to be untapping some lands, let's tap them for some additional mana. Ice Magic, it just felt fitting for this deck in order to have this card in here. And then you can, have some different forms of removal depending on what you need at the time. Negate for counterspell, Planar Incision in order for that blink, Pongify for some removal, Rapid Hybridization for some removal, Snap for some temporary removal and untapping some lands, and Swan Song for counterspell there. Lands, we have a whole bunch of islands, and then Sink into Stupor for another way to remove one of our opponent's spells, at least temporarily. And then for our sorceries, a Contentious Plan, another way to proliferate, a little bit of draw power on top of that as well. Memories Returning, reveal top 5. You add one to your hand, your opponent puts one on the bottom. You add one to your hand, your opponent puts one on the bottom. And the last one goes to your hand there. Sleep, tap all creatures target player controls. Those creatures don't tap during the player's next untap step. Like I said, we've been tapping all of our opponent's creatures. We're just being a little bit of a menace. Tezzeret's Gambit, draw 2 cards, proliferate. Once again, we've been liking the proliferation there for Shiva's abilities, so we'll do it as much as we can. And for the stun counters, with cards like Tranquilize, tap target creature and opponent controls and put 3 stun counters on it. But that's the deck. If you guys like it, make sure you like, comment, subscribe so you can stay tuned for future videos. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day.